Hello, I'm Jo Harrison. I'm the Director of Environment Planning and Innovation at United Utilities. And I want to talk to you today about how we manage our existing asset base to ensure that it can be even more effective whilst managing obviously the critical aspects of cost. So I wanted to just talk to you today a little bit about the assets that we manage in the northwest of England and how we sort of are trying to optimise our investment across that asset base. So United Utilities is the water company for the northwest. We serve 7 million customers every day, and as you can see from that slide, we've got a huge quantity of assets that we have to manage. Around sort of 568 wastewater treatment works, 56,000 kilometres of sewer, and so on. But in order to do that, we really need to be optimising our investment. Those assets are very, very long in their sort of age, and so we've got many assets that are over 100 years old. So it's really critical that we're optimising that investment and being able to deliver the best value for money for our customers. So I'm going to talk to you today about how we're trying to use a smarter approach to asset management and taking 3 different case studies to talk you through. One looking at tanks, another looking at pipes, and the last one looking at pumps. So what we're going to really talk through is our approach to understanding the requirements at each of those different asset bases and how we can really try and sort of drive improvements, recognising that we've got very much sort of a limited amount of funding available in order to be able to deliver the improvements that are needed across those asset bases, but also that we've got a very significant number of operational challenges in terms of our key performance indicators that are set by our regulators, and that we need to sort of use these smarter approaches to really be able to drive that optimised performance going forward. So the first example I just wanted to talk through was around our approach to managing our service reservoirs. So many of you might remember that back in 2015 there was a serious water quality incident in the northwest associated with one of our treatment works in Lancashire called Franklaw. And what the findings of that investigation and the source of the cryptosporidium that caused the water quality incident was found to be the leaking roofs of our service reservoirs, and in particular one service reservoir at a place called Barnacre in Lancashire. And so that led us to really wanting to be able to understand the condition of our asset base and be able to understand how those service reservoirs were performing. But of course, with all water companies, we have restricted amounts of investment that we can apply to these different types of assets. So we had £50 million worth of funding available to investigate the impact of flooding at our treatment works, at our service reservoirs. And so we really wanted to be able to sort of understand how we could optimise that investment and deliver improvements across the asset base. And this graph just shows you that actually some of those assets are over 100 years old, but it's not always the oldest asset which cause the problems in your asset base, because often it's the other surrounding impacts of things like ground conditions, construction materials that are actually causing the impacts to the asset age. So we wanted to be able to properly target our investment in order to be able to really determine where we have the highest level of risk. And so that was how we sort of set about delivering that programme. So understanding that underlying asset health of your assets is far more important than just understanding the age, and being able to model and quantify those different types of investment requirements is critically important. So as part of that work and our research and the investigations that we undertook led to about 20 of those service reservoirs being abandoned, and the work was really focused on the rest of the asset base, really particularly targeting those areas where we knew that there was greatest risk. So we can now confirm that the majority of those assets are now absolutely watertight and fit to hold drinking water for the populations of the northwest. Another approach is looking at our networks. So we have a huge number of key performance indicators and metrics that our customers really hold us to associated with our water network. And pressure management in our water network is critical to being able to actually be able to deliver against those. So our regulators manage us against key performance indicators such as pressure management and leakage and the number of bursts. And obviously all of those lead to customer complaints. So being able to maximise the opportunity associated with investment around the water network is critical. And what we've identified, along with all of the water companies, is that how we manage pressure is critical to the performance of those assets. And water companies have been managing pressure in water mains for many, many years, but sometimes that's been quite crude. So the approach that we've taken is very much more around how do we sort of optimise that investment moving forward. So we've really tried to focus on looking at where the variance in pressure is across our asset base, and that's variance in either geography or in time. So in many locations, the pressure might vary across the day, and that pressure transience causes problems with the validity of the asset base and how it reacts to those different types of pressures. But also, if you have areas which have a very variable topography, then you find that you have different pressures associated with that too. So what we're trying to do is to really be able to understand the pressure of our systems and be able to modify it and be able to control it in a way that means that we can actually limit the impact on the assets going forward. So we've set about delivering a whole new programme of pressure management to really be able to optimise the pressure across our system. So we've divided our distribution zones up into much smaller areas, which allows us to take a much more sophisticated approach. And so you can see from those graphs that actually the overall level of pressure in our systems has been reduced over the period of being able to deliver this project, which has meant that we've got very significant improvements in performance and very much fewer bursts associated with that, those assets. But it's not just around how we sort of manage the pressure in those assets. It's when you install that new apparatus, install those pressure management valves, we've got to make sure that actually our people can really sort of understand how to maintain those assets and be able to access them safely. So historically, when we've installed pieces of kit like this, we've often found that we've constructed access chambers and so on, which make it difficult to undertake repairs and to ensure that we've got the right supplies for our customers. So as part of this whole approach, we've taken a different approach to constructing our chambers so that they're much more accessible and people can operate and work more safely, but also it means that we can just get in and repair things much more easily and safely going forward. And that's the result of it. So you can see that the overall benefits of pressure management mean a huge reduction in the risk associated with bursts going forward. So that's beneficial for us as a company. It reduces the amount of time that we need to spend maintaining our assets, and it drives improvements for customers. But it's not just our civil assets that are important here. We also need to sort of focus on our mechanical assets. And so we've also been looking at how we can optimise our maintenance of our pumps across our asset base, both water and wastewater pumps. And like many companies, we've gone through different approaches to pump maintenance over the years, but we had got to a situation where if an asset failed, we were either replacing that asset with a new asset or we were hiring in a pump to replace that asset. And that sort of felt that we like a situation where we weren't really optimising the life of those assets and being able to really sort of extend the life and make sure that we were spending customers' money in the most efficient way. So we set about building a new refurbishment centre at a place called Dock Road South, which is in Merseyside, which basically sort of sets about how trying to sort of maintain those assets and build an asset base for the future so that we've always got available assets that we can then put back into supply. So the workshop at Dock Road South enables us to really sort of be able to take that sort of holistic look at how we sort of extend the life of our assets. So if a pump fails, then it gets taken to the workshop. It's then reviewed and an assessment of that sort of the viability of that asset is undertaken. And then we're obviously sort of looking at the whole variety of different asset management interventions that we can deliver there. Can we reuse that asset? Can we use components of that asset, or can we completely refurbish it? So that's the sort of the cycle of work that we undertake as we sort of go through that life cycle. And what that enables us to do then is to take a view about whether we need to dispose of that asset, or that we can indeed keep it as part of our inventory, and that we can use it then to optimise the way that we manage our replacement assets going forward. And that whole sort of optimization cycle really enables us to drive efficiencies into our supply chain. It enables us to really sort of think about how we optimize that approach to maintenance in the long term. So that's just a shot there of our the workshop at Dock Road, and you can see the refurbished pumps there waiting to be installed at another location. So I think really the conclusion of our presentation today is that we have a finite amount of investment that we can deliver to really sort of drive improvements in our asset base across the Northwest. We have to be able to optimise where that investment is and how we can really sort of think about how it delivers the best benefits for our customers. So, we know that we have got an ageing asset base. We know that asset health is deteriorating, but how do we just think differently about trying to sort of drive improvements to maintain the condition of those assets and ensure that we can extend the asset life until it's a viable time, an appropriate planned time to be able to drive those improvements going forward. Thank you.